I call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask everyone to remain standing for a moment, just for a moment of silence. We're passing with Sheasley, who was a firefighter and an EMS member.
This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of January 27th, 2020 was sent to the Central Record, Robinson County Times, and New Post. Posted on the Old Corning Town Hall, and has remained with Community Reporters required purposes under the statutes. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public, and is on file in the office of the District Court. Roll call, Mr. Barton.
Robert.
Ms. McGinnis. Here. Mr. York.
Present.
Mr. Sunbury.
Present.
Mayor Corral.
Here. This time I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Public comment will be on agenda items only. As you recall, or you may not know, at the last meeting, we determined that we're going to keep our 3-minute time frame, and we're going to have a visual countdown so you can see exactly where you are with your time. When your time is up, please have a seat, and if the committee thinks it's an immediate answer is needed now, we'll answer it now. Otherwise, it will be addressed later or during the committee's comments. This time I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Is this the place for the public?
Yes, please.
Terrific. Thank you. It's very handy. I had a number of comments and questions. I see you need public comment, the second public comment before the committee reports, and that's a departure from the usual order. I wondered, I'm asking if that is an intentional move, or you really intend to follow the long-standing practice of having public comment after committee reports. Second, I see that this agenda calls for 2 public comment periods, this one now and the one year the reports. That too has been the long-standing practice, but my understanding at last meeting, when the procedures were discussed and asked, there was only 1 public comment period. The overall comment that knits those 2 together is that I would suggest that that resolution or whatever process you followed to set that procedure at the reorganization meeting be amended. And I make that recommendation because that resolution or procedure gets dusted off at the beginning of every year, and those 2 mistakes, for lack of a better word, that I pointed out were in last year's process as well. And I think what's happening is they just get carried over. They sit for a year and then they're carried over again. So that's why I'm thinking this is the time to amend the process, get it right, and then when you need it again at the next reorg meeting, it's right. My next comment, I see that on item 3, public comment, you've limited public comment to exclude first reading ordinances. I'd like to know what the rationale is that. Frankly, if there's a good comment to be made, I didn't see why you wouldn't consider it first off. That way you can modify the ordinance at the time. If you wait till second reading to hear public comment, by then you're sort of locked into keeping the mistake in. Otherwise, you've got to re-advertise it if it's a substantial change. It just seems like if you want to encourage public comment and listen to what people have to say and incorporate comments where you deem them to be good, better to do it up front than to wait later when you might not be inclined to do it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment on agenda items. Resolution 2020-42, authorize the award of contract for information technology services. Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-43, authorize cancellation of property taxes for parcel owned by a New Jersey DEP. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-44, adopting the Burlington County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan for Tabernacle Township. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Abstain.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-45, authorize the township engineer to solicit bids for the 2020 road program. Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion. I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-46, authorize cancellation of certain property taxes pursuant to a 100% totally disabled veteran exemption. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Barton? Mayor Brown?
Yes. Could I have a motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Can I have a motion to authorizing to conduct aerial mosquito control?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. This time I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Again, it will be 3 minutes, and there will be a timer to help you keep track of your time. You want Mrs. Brooks?
Brenda Brooks, Morris Road. Good evening. Just to follow up on the comment that Mr. Brooks made regarding putting public comment before the reports. It's been a long-standing practice to have public comment follow reports. It makes sense. It makes for a much more effective meeting because if any questions arise from those reports, the public has a chance to respond to them then. If you want to make more work for yourselves, continue following the agenda. I know I wrote you an email this afternoon with some people copied on it because we don't have all the email addresses. But notwithstanding, I really think you should think long and hard about the way you're ordering the way you created the order of business if you're going to continue with this public comment before the reports. I'd like to quickly say that I'd like to hear some comments, a comment about how you're managing the special counsel. Here's a list of questions if you want to write them down. Who's going to manage the special counsel? Is that going to be Mr. Lang or somebody else or some other people? Who oversees and reviews the special counsel's work? Has the township tasked the special counsel to review every Oprah request? Because it's stated in their RFP, in the response to the RFP, that the Malamute, and I'm not sure how it's actually pronounced because it's so easy to say Malamute, pronounces the firm's name, but what other tasks are they going to be carrying? Is the special counsel going to handle? Why does Tabernacle even need a special counsel? We have 2 RMCs on staff. Most of the governing bodies get along pretty well with just one. And the vast majority of Oprahs are for conventional documents. Very few of them, when you look through the official log, are for anything special, including my Oprahs. And that should easily be handled by the township clerk and by Ms. Kennedy, who happens to teach classes at Rutgers on Oprah and OPMA. So you have 2 talented people who can do the work. I don't know why we need a special counsel. Have all the special counsel management and procedures been memorialized, and if not, will they be? And again, are there other tasks? I would recommend that if you're going to adhere to your 3-minute rule procedure, that maybe as a suggestion, you put it into your agenda, that it always appears in the form that you've presented it, the statement that you've read into the record. You put that into the agenda so anybody who comes to the meeting can see what the 3-minute rule consists of, because otherwise there tends to be a lot of variability. The last thing I would say is you ought to continue to meet in this building, because this is the people's building. And it's a much better room than the 2nd floor of Town Hall. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Stuart Brooks, Moore's Meadow Road. I also would speak highly of continuing your meetings in this facility. The lighting's better, the access is better, the acoustics are better, and the seating for you seems to be better. The lectern up here is easy. It just seems better in all respects. And I believe, Mr. Barton, you suggested this months ago. Mr. Barton, when you were Mayor Barton, and I now meeting here and being here, I see the sense of that. I would suggest you give that good consideration. Regarding the comment on the second public comment period preceding reports, I remember when Engineer Guzzi presented his road improvement plan as part of his report. If the policy of today was in place then, it would mean you would have no public comment on your road improvement program, or no public comment on any substantive report that's presented to you. And that, I think, is, it's not in the public's interest. I don't think it's in your interest either. I think that's bad policy. So I really do think you should change that so that the public gets to comment on the reports that you make. If you think your reports are important enough to present to the public, surely it's important enough for the public to respond to them. Lastly, a question that I raised a couple meetings ago, and I'll raise it again. Are all committee members going to have an official township email address? And will that email address be published on the township website? You know, that wasn't the case when I first raised it. It's still not the case now. I'd like to think that it's an improvement that's in process, and I hope you get to it. The last question I have concerns your comment, Mayor Brown, about the manner in which committee would get to responding to or answering to the comments that are made at either first or second comment. Often in the past, comments would be made and no reply would ever come. Some of the comments that are made today, like what's the rationale for how you've ordered the public comment, is topical today, and I hope you get to it today. Frankly, I think most comments that are made are topical when they're offered, and I think it would be good practice to get to them either on the spot when they're made or certainly by the end of the meeting. I do like the countdown. It's very helpful. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Sean Colson, 438 Metro Lakes Road. Just want to start out by apologizing to Chief Kennard back there for taking anything I say up here personally. It's never my intention. I truly do want what's best for this township whenever I come up here. And he said how I speak like I have authority on these matters. It's not the case. I speak. What's that?
Just look at us.
No problem. I apologize. When I get up here and speaking what I believe is the absolute truth, it's the God's honest truth of it. When I come up here, what I have in my hand, when things I talk about, I'm not trying to attack anybody, just trying to do what's best for this town. Now, excuse me, a couple things. He said I scare easy. Of course, I wasn't here when he said that, which take that as you will. I had already left the meeting at that point, but he said how I scare easy because of all the things that they do and how great they are. Well, one thing he talked about was their grants. This is really my main point I want to talk about. Is it's a great thing to have that FEMA grant. Fantastic thing for this town. It's an asset to have people down at that firehouse. However, I haven't seen anybody down there for a few weeks. It's so point of that is I'm sure the excuse is, FEMA's having a problem. Thing is, when a government is shut down, that grant, they're still required to have staffing at the firehouse. So I don't know what excuse there could possibly be on why there's no staffing at the firehouse. And I think as a township, as citizenry, we should really be concerned with what's going on down there, on whether or not they actually lost that grant or what's happening. I'd like to know the answer to it. And finally, what was it? Well, anyway, that was my main point. I wanted to know about the grant because that is just absolutely shocking. But the other thing I actually just remembered was, I find it shocking that a public official can come up here and badmouth a resident for 3 minutes straight, and there's no repercussions for that. I couldn't believe that when I watched that video, and he just went on and on how terrible I was. He's a township official. There needs to be some sort of repercussion for that. That is absolutely worrisome in my mind. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Reports, engineer.
All's quiet for the winter. We're just waiting for the spring, and we'll get started with the finalized last year's road program. The other update is on the DOT. We're still waiting for their authorization for Oakshade Road Phase 1, which we received a grant for last year, so that we can go out to bid with that one. So as soon as we get DOT authorization, that's all covered by grant money. As soon as we get that authorization, we get that bid on that.
Thank you. Any questions for Dan? Emergency management report?
Nothing to report for this one.
Thank you. Doug?
The improvements to Town Hall are moving along. The cubicles have been installed. We have some final adjustments to make to them. And we are working on the rest of the upstairs meeting room and getting that moving along. Hopefully, we should be ready on the 10th.
Anything else?
That's all.
Anyone have anything for Doug? Okay, thank you.
Salt, Doug, you loaded up?
We have a full building.
Been an easy winter so far.
Already changed them all.
You're
Ice is like that was my fault. Yes, Mayor, thank you. Mr. Sunbury and Mrs. McGinnis may not remember, but we did speak about an ordinance to modify the senior housing element pursuant to comments that were made by a resident request. We did have some discussion on it. It was held, I think, at the end of the year, so as not to carry over between committees. But I believe that the committee was inclined to undertake that modification. So barring any objection, I'll go ahead and prepare a draft for our next workshop or circulate that among the staff and the committee so that we can move forward, at least the changes, whatever they end up looking like. I think the consensus was that we would make some changes, but not maybe all of the changes, so we'll facilitate that during the making of the sausage as it goes. But barring any objection, I'll go ahead and get something out in draft so that it can get onto an agenda or be moved forward if that's still the intention of the committee.
Yes, if you can disseminate that to the committee.
All right, I'll move that forward, and that's all I have for tonight.
Anyone have any questions? All right, committee. Mr. Sunbury.
No, but I do think, well, my comment was, I thank Peter for bringing that up. That was a lot of common sense requests in that request that got bounced back to the Land Development Board, mimicked a lot of the things that are already in the contracts out of Leisure Town. And I saw no reason why if somebody is a younger spouse, they should be able to live with them or have kids take care of them, you know, if they're ill and need that. So it's kind of a common sense modification, so thank you for following up on that.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else? Please, Nancy. I was hoping you would. Kind of timid dying. Jeff?
Mayor, I'd just like to report I'm going to be on vacation February 1 to 11. I'm out of state. I'll be available by phone if you need.
Where I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting first to the 7th.
That's all I have there.
Thank you. I'm going to go back and I'm going to address some of these questions. First, I want to go back to the last meeting when Mrs. Brooks asked about what was the purpose of the special counsel. We hired a special counsel for matters relating to Open Public Meetings Records Act and the OPMA. OPMA requires the government records to be public access unless specifically exempted. OPMA requires government meetings to be conducted in the open to the greatest extent possible, consistent with the public interest and without invading individual privacy. Mr. Burns will work collaboratively with the township clerk and administrator to not only maintain and increase transparency through the continued compliance with OPRA and OPMA, but also to confirm that all exclusion and exemptions contemplated in OPMA and OPRA and the attendant executive orders and case law are followed. Mr. Burns will work closely with township officials to provide another level of review, which will ensure that OPRA and OPMA matters are handled appropriately, consistently, and expeditiously, while also safeguarding individual privacy and public interest. Getting to the public comment questions, it wasn't an oversight on the original order of business. That is a framework. The framework can be moved around, and that is exactly what we did. It was a reorganization meeting. We did not have public comment on agenda items because, as you know, there were a lot of agenda items that were uniformly the same as they are every single year. The public comment before on agenda items was always going to be there. It just wasn't listed in that order. We have the ability to move that around. The reason we put public comment before reports is so exactly what I'm doing right now. I can answer your questions after you ask them. We don't want to have a going back and forth. You put your questions out there, we're going to answer them as we go along. So we take notes. I made notes of every single thing you said, and I'm answering your questions. And that's the purpose why we moved it to before the committee reports. If there was something such as a road project, that would be listed as an agenda item. That would be something you'd be able to actually question and talk about in your public comment about agenda items. We have some changes being made to Town Hall, as you heard Mr. Kramer speak about, to make it a little more user-friendly at Town Hall and cleaner, not cleaner, but
A little more organized.
thank you, a little more organized, that was the word I was looking for. It's not beyond the realm of possibility of having meetings every now and then here at the Emergency Services Building. And as far as the fire company information, that's something that the subcommittee has been working with the fire company on, and we are on top of what is going on there. With that, having a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's on It's okay.